When you were in the White House, you dealt with these data all the time. In fact, the job of the Council of Economic Advisors, as I understand it, is to make sure the president is getting accurate information to make informed decisions about the economy. What do you make of these reports about tinkering with the methodology?
So the trade statistics are one of the most important pieces of data the U.S. government collects to inform how the U.S. is working and competing in the global economy. The reports that are out for how the export numbers would be altered, I know of no problem that would solve. I know of many problems that would introduce about not only how we understanding and seeing what our economy is doing, but more fundamentally about the integrity of our U.S. government statistics.
And let's be more precise. My understanding, and I wonder if it's yours, is that the specific change they're talking about is we would not report as an export a product that came into the country for re-export, but we would report that as an import.
Right. So the reality of how so many American companies compete and succeed in the global economy is they have these very elaborate global supply chains. There's value added in the United States by American workers, American capital, and know-how. But more and more, those American workers and companies are combining all that talent with imports that come in from the rest of the world, sometimes to sell those goods in the United States, but sometimes to export back onto other markets around the world. So it's not clear at all what information is being gained by not counting as exports, goods and services that we're sending to foreign markets that have some imported intermediate inputs.
So Matthew, as I say, you were responsible for gathering these data and relying upon these data. Who gets to decide the methodology? Can the president decide that?
Oh, that's a deep and important question. For many decades in the United States, we've had an understanding that we are going to hopefully adequately fund and allow the integrity of process to play out in our statistical agencies, like the U.S. Bureau of Census. And so there's long-standing academic and policy research about how to measure different aspects of U.S. economic performance. Clearly, as the global economy becomes more intricate, the measurement issues become more important. And yet the directors of these agencies and their terrific staff have invested years and energy in understanding how to put together consistent and reliable statistics. And history shows very clearly when you have sovereign governments that start to infringe on the integrity of that statistical process, problems can arise.
It's one thing when you're trying to formulate policy in the U.S. government. You are dean of a business school. What does it do to businesses who need to take these data into account as they plan their future?
So there's so many businesses in America, especially the small business exporters, that are looking to grow and create new jobs and new opportunities in their communities by tapping into the growth in foreign markets. But what's vital for companies to understand what markets to sell into is to see accurate data on how large the exports are going into those countries. If we start to tinker with how we measure those exports, it's going to impede the ability of all kinds of businesses in America, not just the large multinationals, but importantly those young startups that are often looking to grow into foreign markets. It'll impede their ability to understand market conditions and therefore figure out whom to hire and how to grow.
So move aside now from trade data to employment data, because the President of the United States has not been shy about saying he doesn't really believe the data. He thinks there are a lot more unemployed, or certainly underemployed people than are being reported. What would be the ramifications of changing that methodology?
It would make it very difficult for market participants, for companies to understand the changes over time that the U.S. economy is realizing. And I think it's important for everyone to remember, our Bureau of Labor Statistics does a very careful and conscientious job of measuring a number of dimensions of unemployment. The headline figure that comes out every month on Friday mornings, that's only one measure of unemployment and underemployment that the U.S. government currently tracks. And so the integrity of how we measure those things and changes over time should never be taken lightly.
So give us a sense, having been in the White House, is it fairly much standard that you periodically review this sort of thing and consider possibilities, or is this out of the ordinary? I mean, after all, they haven't changed anything as far as we know. They're just thinking about it.
No, that's right. I think changes that have come from the statistical agencies are most reliable and I think most trusted when they come from the statistical agencies themselves and from other areas of policy and academic research. Again, the global economy is becoming much more complex, and so the issues of how we measure cross-border transactions, for example, tradable services are increasingly important, but there's harder to see than goods that get shipped through rail and ship and air. The kinds of innovations that happen in the statistical process tend to come from agencies themselves and from conversations across sovereign governments. But that process of creating new innovations, when it's done by elected officials for reasons that aren't clear, again, history makes very clear. Look at Argentina in recent years with their price indices, for example. You can run into important problems for the market participants, for the integrity of the government overall.
Now, for those of us who are not academics, those of us who are not economists, give us a sense of the academic literature in this. Is there a range of possibilities? Is what is being talked about within a range, or is it outside that range?
Well, there's an important issue when you think about exports and imports for the United States, which is when we have these global supply chains, the amount of value added in the United States by American workers and companies can get harder to see when you have many stages of production crossing many borders linked together through international trade and investment. I've done academic research on this. There's whole books, many books that have been written. There's ongoing conferences through organizations like the National Bureau of Economic Research and through our U.S. statistical agencies. So the issues of how we accurately understand performance and success in the global economy, those are real questions. Again, it's the deep issue here is who's proposing asking questions and why, that ideally should be done in a transparent and meaningful way.